Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of LawTech Connect on Litera TV. I'm your host, Adriana Linares. I'm a legal technology trainer and consultant. And it is 10:30 in the morning in Orlando, Florida, which is where I am today. And I'm excited to have a good friend and a wonderful attorney and a great advocate for the use of technology in the practice of law, Renee Thompson, with me. Hi, Renee.
Hi, Adriana. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you could be here. Appreciate
Of
it.
course.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your practice and where you live and, how you keep yourself busy.
Sure. I am a civil attorney and also a mediator in Ocala, Florida. So in the center of the state of Florida. So we deal a lot in Florida with equine law because we are the horse capital of the world. So I do quite a bit of civil work in that field.
That is so cool. I wonder what made, if you have any idea, Ocala, Central Florida, the horse capital of the world. What drew people here? Do you even know?
Actually, yes, I do.
Oh, I figured.
The topography of Ocala is unique to racehorses. There's only two places in the world who have the topography and the natural resources that Ocala has. And one of them is actually in Europe, which is also an equine hub, and one of them is Ocala. So we are, just distinct for our agricultural reasons why thoroughbreds do so well here.
That's so cool. Plus, it's always nice weather.
Oh
Florida's
yeah, it's
my
perfect. And it's
home.
great. The Kentucky farms can come here
Yeah.
in the summertime and still race in the winter. And, it's lovely.
It is. Florida is my domicile, as I like to say. I mean, I travel around a lot, but I like to not pay my taxes in Florida. So, and of course, much of the draw to Florida is our lovely weather, which we're having today.
It is. It's
So,
gorgeous here.
and I wasn't supposed to be here. I got pushed out of New Orleans last week because of that damn hurricane. And so,
Zeta.
Zeta, kicked the
It
power
even
out.
sounds terrible.
She sounds mean, doesn't she?
It does. She sounds terrible.
And I still have a lot of friends and businesses without power. It's so crazy. So, Renee, you are, and I love making this point, especially when I get young attorneys or law students listening to me and hearing from experienced and successful lawyers. You're very active in legal related organizations like the Florida Bar and your local bar, the Women's Bar. You've always been very active. Tell us a little bit about why that's important to you and your practice, and then two, your extensive work with the Florida Bar and how you and I got to know each other as one of the technology czars for the bar.
Absolutely. So I was very privileged to have started my Florida bar work while I was a young attorney. I got involved with the Young Lawyers Division, was on their board of governors for 8 years, eventually became president of that division statewide, but really got a feel and a passion for it when I was young. So it stayed with me through my entire career. I mean, here I am, now serving on the board of governors, and like you said, the technology committee of the bar. And it's definitely a passion of mine. It's something I care deeply about. I think it not only helps a young practitioner learn how to be better at what they do and their skills, but it creates a network of people for you around the state and around the nation, which you need in your practice. Not everyone does everything. So you need to have other people you can rely on to make sure that you're not only keeping in touch with what's happening in your practice area, but you have places to refer other things to as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just so critical. And I'm one of those people that always thought, oh, networking isn't that important. Oh, the business will come. But it's
Well, think
critical.
about the pandemic. I mean, for the last 8 months, everyone's been inside. There really has not been a social outlet for people to go to network, to do their normal business relationships. I was very fortunate. I do mediations, but, I had a network already built. And so, it's so vital to have that already, because if I had to build that from scratch, I just don't know how many attorneys would do it under those
Or
circumstances.
especially right now. I talked,
Right.
I had
There's
a guest
nowhere to
on last
go.
week. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a guest on last week. Actually, he's also based in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And he's saying that he's trying to build a second office, a second practice up in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's hard right now because of the pandemic. So
It
he's
really
really
is.
relying on his existing network and, you know, doing what he can digitally. So having that in place as early as you can is definitely a really good tip. What have you heard? I know you've been involved with a lot of town halls, and the Florida Bar is so active in outreach to their members and getting into every corner of Florida, from the Panhandle to Miami. And the current president is based in South Florida, but I know she's been doing town halls across the state, and you've been pretty active in those. What are you hearing are either the successes or the struggles that attorneys are still having 8 months into this thing?
So Florida is a huge state, as you know, between North Florida all the way down to Miami-Dade and Key West. We have 20 circuits, and our Florida Bar president visited each one virtually over a 2-month period, but met with every single chief judge, every single local bar that wanted to participate in those, and really spent time to try to find out not only what's happening in those circuits, but to try to find out what we as a bar could do better to serve our membership. So it was really vital for us to see the interrelationship between not only the bar, but the courts. Having the judiciary on those calls was crucial. We had some incoming state attorneys, some incoming public defenders. We had clerks' offices. When you have those relationships that are so vital to keep communication lines open for lawyers, it's important. Everyone does things a little differently, circuit by circuit. That's one thing that was very clear. We have different clerks in every county. So think about 67 counties across the state, all different clerks, all different technologies. But one thing came out very clearly, which is that people want to continue remote proceedings. Remote proceedings were absolutely positively the best thing for lawyers that have come out of this pandemic. They were kind of forced to the table. The courts were forced to the table to figure out how to do it. Zoom was the top platform that they used. Some others use Teams and some WebEx, and there's some mix of other technologies depending on what they're most comfortable with or what their current technology already works with, Cisco or otherwise. But I was really impressed with how the court stepped up. Not only made Zoom available to all Florida judges, but got everybody up and running and trained so quickly so that the courts could continue to operate and provide access to the citizens of Florida. So it was very clear that was something that attorneys definitely want to continue with. I think the challenge is evidentiary hearings.
Yeah.
When they have to figure out how to present their evidence in a virtual platform, there's not a whole lot of uniformity right now on a statewide level. How do you submit those documents? Do we really want to put them in the portal? Do the clerks want them? Where do they go? We have all these wonderful cloud systems, but unfortunately the court system doesn't utilize them yet. So it is a step-by-step system for them, but we're getting there.
So what are you seeing happening now in that arena? Are they just not doing them, or are they, everybody tries something different? Is it a little bit up to,
The latter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you basically have some maybe more skilled judges on that set of skills to be able to kind of work their magic on Zoom and try to figure out how to get all those exhibits. But, you have everything from judges requiring, notebooks to be mailed 2 weeks early, not really electronically savvy way to do things during a pandemic, to, being able to upload documents and to do it the way it probably should be done. So it's been so interesting to watch and to see all of the unique ways that judges have gotten creative, under the circumstances.
And you get a firsthand alert or a firsthand insight into this because your husband is a judge.
Yes. He's a county judge here in Marion County. And so his entire world went virtual at the beginning of this pandemic, and they are just slowly but surely working their way back into in-person jury trials and whatnot.
Oh, really? I was going to ask you sort of side story and kind of a joke, but we were driving home from New Orleans or driving to Florida, and that song "Don't Take the Girl" came on by, it's not Alan Jackson, is it?
I know you're talking about.
Tim McGraw. Oh, Tim McGraw. Yeah. And he talks about Tommy Thompson.
He does. That's my husband's name.
I was like, and I hadn't thought about it as many times as I'd heard that song. Tim McGraw mentioned Renee's husband in this song. I love
great.
that. So well, you know, we all got a little country in us down here in the South.
Mhm.
So had he been from when this all started, he had been running his court from your home then?
Yes. I was, I had a home office set up that we basically converted into a courtroom. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
Right, right.
It just became courtroom central for him. And, he'd start in the morning and, it just took a little bit to figure out how do we get people Zoom invites?
Uh-huh.
How do we get up and running on all of those platforms? But, once that transition happened, it started to go a lot smoother and we really saw a difference. Probably the biggest surprise for me is that the citizens of Florida really like it. They want to be able to appear remotely as well. They don't have to take off a full day of work.
Right. No, it makes
They
so
don't
much
have to
sense.
leave their homes or their children or whatever may be happening in their life to appear for a 45-minute hearing or whatnot. So it was great to see that working for them as well. I think it was a real benefit for them,
That's
efficiency
great.
wise.
Well, and I think Tommy Thompson's pretty lucky to have a techie like you in the house. So
I'm sure
I'm
it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt to be able to ask.
right, right.
I mean,
No,
webcams were a little short, at the beginning of the pandemic, so he got a little lucky.
he did. No, I think that's great, and I definitely have heard also, and I see posts on Facebook or just conversations on Twitter that attorneys would really love to continue being able to do this remotely. It saves time, saves them money, it saves their clients money. So I'm glad to hear too that the courts have been so embracing of all this. And I keep calling this, sort of jokingly, but pretty seriously, the technology enlightenment period for legal, which is something you have been fighting for many years in your role with the Florida Bar and the Technology Committee and having been the chair of all these committees. So just want to say thanks for always being there for those who are struggling with tech and encouraging them to become tech competent.
Oh,
So
it's so part of our practice now.
yeah,
I look back at when we kind of first started using all these tools, and we always dreamed that this is a way we could do our jobs. And now that we're able to do it that way, it's pretty remarkable.
now you have been though on the forefront of using technology for your practice for years, and you ran a solo practice for a long time, right?
Still do.
And still do, and also joined a mediation group. So you have
Correct.
sort of your solo practice, and then you're part of this mediation group. What's your tech stack look like these days?
So I early on became proficient with net documents.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was in a larger firm setting. And of course, when I went out on my own, was able to take my files with me through that platform. And it
Yeah,
made
that's
such a
great.
difference for me. And it's something I'm very comfortable in. So net documents for sure. I use Clio to do all my billing, to track everything that happens from a business perspective for clients. So those are my two main things that I absolutely use. And then of course I add
Yeah.
on things as needed. I'm a big fan of trust books
Oh
for
yeah.
lawyers in
Uh-huh.
Florida because they have compliance with Florida ethical guidelines. And, you can add that on as well. And, not being in the office every day means you still have to be able to be compliant. So being able to access anything anywhere is to me a very key thing.
You have Office 365. You're a PC, if I recall. And do you
Correct.
only have a laptop, or do you have a couple laptops? Do you have a desktop anywhere?
I use a Surface
Uh-huh.
at the house, and that way I can take it with me for mediations or otherwise. And then, of course, I have a desktop at my office. So it just allows me to be able to have multi-screens. The
Mm-hmm.
Surface has a wonderful docking station, so I can take it with me at mediations, but at home I can plug it in and have multi-screen as well. So that's something that's important to me. I use 3 screens, so
Yes. This is my only office with 3 screens between,
yeah.
Hermosa and
And
New
you
Orleans.
miss it
And
when you don't have it.
you do.
You do.
I feel
You
like
really miss it.
command central here.
Yes. And
Oh, what was I going to ask you? Oh, when a hurricane comes through, which a couple of years ago, you had to evacuate. A lot of us did. So anytime a hurricane comes through Florida or near Florida, basically half the state shifts over to the other half of the state, or the upper part of the state kind of moves up into the other southern states. I never consider Florida the South, except maybe in the Panhandle, right?
Right.
Like that swath across the panhandle is as south as it gets for us. What's that saying? You got to go north in order to get to the south
Right.
from Orlando.
Right.
Um, so tell everyone a little bit about your experience of being able to quickly just get up and go when we've had these hurricanes that have caused you to evacuate.
Well, that was one of the large reasons that I wanted to get mobile and be able to do remote everything was, we live in a hurricane state. There have been times where we haven't had power for 2 weeks at an office, or, you just can't stop an entire practice because the internet's down at a particular location, because you can go somewhere where they do have internet. So
Mm-hmm.
it is, I think, important, especially in a state like Florida, to have that mobile ability. And so a couple of years prior to me going out on my own, I really started to figure out that if lawyers were going to survive long term, that they really needed to know how to do that. And so I started making those steps long before I actually went on my own to do that. But, when I was on my own and this hurricane came through, I live in the center of the state. So, I don't have to worry about what some folks on the coastlines or others may have to worry about from a flooding standpoint or otherwise. But for me, the biggest issue is power. So, if I can't get to my office, or if I get there and there's no power, there's no point in being there. There's a lot of things back and forth you start to think about. But the reality of the situation is you want to be safe and you want the ability to pack up and go if you need to. And I remember talking to you during Hurricane Michael, and it was the first opportunity I had had as a solo practitioner to really say, look, this is kind of where I'm at. And I really want to just kind of pack up this office and not have to stress about it. And it was the first time I literally took a box. I put my financial documents in there because I didn't want to leave them in the office. And I put my computer stuff. I had a backup hard drive that I keep just in case. And I left. And I thought, this is the easiest hurricane prep I have ever had. And it took me quite a few years, because I remember as a young associate, all the things we used to have to
Oh
do,
my God, I know,
and
right?
how many boxes of files. And, you're just constantly worried about your clients and what their needs are. But when everything is scanned and digitized, and you don't keep originals, and you don't have to worry about those things quite the same, because they're replaced, through the electronic copies. So it just, like I said, it was a life-changing event for me to see how important it is to be able to literally pick up your practice in your computer and take it with you. And now in the pandemic, no difference. I mean,
And
no matter what the reason is, you can't go somewhere, you still have to be able to do your client's work.
I'm looking around your office there, Renee, and I literally can't find a piece of paper, not a folder. You've got like the requisite legal pad sitting there. There's nothing on it. It's just
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where if you can just kind of cull through things as you get them in the mail, as a mediator, I get a lot of, pre-mediation statements and things. You've got to be able to know how to just archive the things that are necessary to keep, how to get rid of the things that aren't, in a safe way. And then, like I said, you're up and running and doing what you need to do. And it simplifies your life. So if anyone out there is considering it, thinking about it, I hope this pandemic has given you that extra oomph as to why being remote is so critical, and how much easier it is to become remote today than it is, even 5 years ago.
Let's talk about your very cool area. One of the areas of law that you specialize in, being that Ocala is the horse capital of the world, you do equine law.
I do.
And is that something you stumbled into because you became a lawyer and here you are in Ocala? Or was that something that you thought was cool when you were in law school, or did you have a chance maybe to apprentice under an equine lawyer? That just sounds so interesting. So tell us, first of all, in case somebody doesn't know, which I'd be the first one to say, what is equine law, other than it's dealing with, is it individual horses? Is it part of the racing industry? Is it the thoroughbred part of horses? Is it just any old horse?
It could be any of those things. It's, specifically related to a field of animal law, which is always something that has appealed to me. I love animals.
Yes, you
I
have a lot of
started as a
pets
young,
and
yeah, I
farm, a
started
little
as a
hobby
young,
farm.
that's true. I started as a young lawyer working, for an attorney in a firm that did a lot of it. And so I really gravitated towards, what it meant and how it worked. I mean, there's an entire transactional side to equine law where you're writing board contracts and syndication agreements for horses. I mean, it can be anything related to the purchase, sale, upkeep, maintenance, mortality, whatever you want to do with regard to horses. But then there's a whole nother side that deals with the litigation pieces of horses, because of course, when the contracts fail or life gets in the way, sometimes people have to litigate. So I started doing a lot of equine related litigation, which has now led to a lot of equine related mediation, because that's a big part of my practice. So.
And tell me about an interesting case that you had, maybe your most interesting one, if you can think of it, having to do with a dispute over a horse, a set of horses, a horse farm, the purse that somebody may have won in a race, anything?
Well, I can't really tell you about the mediations because they're confidential, but I have litigated quite a few horse cases. One of them, when I was a young attorney, was very interesting. It was in regards to whether or not the horse farm was responsible for having a dog on the premises while the horses were racing. Unfortunately, one of the riders was, working one of the horses, and one of the farm dogs came up and essentially spooked the horse. And, essentially the rider was injured, and that led to a series of litigation as to whether or not that was workers' compensation, whether or not, it fell outside of that. But, there's a lot of interesting things that happen. Horses get out on, out of fences, they get hit by cars, people get injured. I mean, there's so many ways in which animals become part of litigation. It's really kind of surprising. So, I find myself in a lot of disputes regarding the sale and purchase of horses, and did they get what they actually thought they were getting when they had the horse vetted, or they hired someone who may or may not have done all the things they had hoped they had done. So,
is there lemon law for horses?
Well, Florida has some administrative rules that are very distinct as to when you purchase a horse. So you have to really make some assertions about, who owns the horse and whether or not you've had them vetted. And, there's some disclosures that are required upon purchase.
Do you have any horses?
I don't. We lease our property. We have a farm up in Citra, and we lease it actually. So I have horses on my property. They're just not mine.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
When it comes, and so you've also, I think I just want to mention again, just the interesting aspects is that sometimes there's a dispute about who gets the horse, maybe during a divorce or something.
It's true. Well, I mean, they call, thoroughbred racing is the sport of kings because you have to be able to afford thoroughbreds. So I mean, they're not inexpensive animals to not only purchase, but to upkeep. So you can understand that in any family dispute, if somebody wants to keep the horse, why that might be. Those horses can be very valuable, and people have invested quite a bit into their livelihoods.
That's pretty cool. I did some work for a firm. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can't remember. It was in the Northeast. Oh, maybe it was Providence. Could it have been? I don't remember where I was, but there was an attorney there, a woman who did a lot of work with the horse racing industry up there. And specifically, one of the things that I remember seeing in her documents were tables of the drugs and the medications and the nutrients that were given to the horses. And I just thought, and I hadn't thought about it as a person who has been to the Kentucky Derby twice and has been to Belmont Stakes. Like, I love horse races too. And I just thought it was so interesting. I hadn't thought about how the lawyers get so involved in every aspect of the sport, including the number of milligrams or whatever it was.
Sure, they're athletes. It's no different than an athlete. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was, anyway, it was just so interesting. And I just think, I hope it inspires people who are, especially young lawyers that are passionate about animals or love that, just to find that niche. Because I think it makes such a difference when you're practicing in an area of law that you love.
True. And Florida is so unique in that way. And there are horse communities all around the state, in South Florida and Wellington. I mean, they're all over. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to find your niche, even if you're not in Ocala.
and likely plenty of business available. That's always a fear I think young lawyers have, or an attorney has, of going out on their own, is where will the business come from?
Well, the University of Kentucky every year during Derby season has a conference called the Equine Law Conference. And
Oh,
so if you're
really?
interested, if you're ever interested in learning more about equine law, I highly recommend that conference. You'll really be able to immerse yourself with national leaders
Huh.
in the equine field and get to go to the Kentucky Derby. So I mean, it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
That is, when people ask me what's the funnest thing you've ever done, I have a nice long list, right? Like Mardi Gras
It's
is
on there.
seriously my favorite the most wonderful time of the year for me is Mardi Gras, but the Kentucky Derby is by far my
There's nothing
single.
like it.
There's nothing like it. And the Indy 400 was really cool too. Wait, was it the Indy 400 and the Brickyard 500? I went to both of those too. Oh, because my old boss, old boss, worked for the law firm that represents the racetrack. That's what I need. I need a race lawyer too on here.
Put it on the list, Adriana.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on my list. Last thing I'm going to ask you about is, because I think it's interesting too, let's bring it all together, which is you are a solo and a mediator, and you do equine law as well as litigation, and you've got this nice technology stack, and you've been doing your mediations through Zoom, like so many mediators have. So just a couple just points and maybe a story about how either easy or hard that was. And you have also been an advocate for training other lawyers on how to use Zoom for their conferences, mediations, and court work. So a little bit about making that transition yourself, and how's it gone with your clients?
Sure. So as you said, I do a lot of mediation work with Upchurch, Watson, White and Max, which is the company I work with. And they were very pro technology as far as making sure that everyone was up to speed on all of the available technologies out there. We settled on Zoom because it had the ability to do breakout rooms
Right.
very easily, which as a mediator is crucial to be able to move from room to room with ease and not have to worry about, is somebody here? Are they listening? Can they get in? I've done them on WebEx as well, just not as functionally transitional. I think they're working on bringing those meeting rooms, and I hope
So,
that
yeah.
they do. I'm waiting for the release of those to see how it looks. But Zoom has been just an ease and a breeze to pull into mediation. I had done them previously prior to the pandemic remotely. But it hadn't really caught on with lawyers, because lawyers were a bit skeptical if their clients would feel comfortable. Do we all need to be in the same room? Are we going to be successful? But it's just taken a little bit. At first, we saw a little bit of resistance. Change is hard for some. And then it just seemed like everyone kind of got used to it. And now we have adjusters who, frankly, I don't think will ever come to a mediation in person again. They are happy. They don't have to travel 5 days a week. It makes more sense for their clients. Efficient wise, you can't get better than be able to pop on one screen and pop on another if you've got a hearing later that day. So it really, I think it's been extremely successful. I love mediating on Zoom. I think it's not only easy from a technology standpoint, but it offers a lot for the process itself. And so we've just made, a few tweaks with regard to making sure the clients are trained in advance, and the settings are proper, and doing the things that have to be done to do it, in accordance with Florida's rules. But other than that, it's been a lot easier.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Renee, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. Let everyone know how they can find, friend, or follow you if they're interested in following up with you or learning more about the things you do.
Oh, sure. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is @LegallyRenee. And like I said, I mediate with Upchurch, Watson, White and Max. You can find me on their website as well. But if you ever need anything with regard to mediation or help with an animal law issue, I do hope you reach out. I'm very involved with the animal law section of the Florida Bar as well. So I can put you in contact with pretty much anyone in those areas. So
thank you, Renee Thompson. You're the best.
love you.
Love you. See you later. Bye.
Bye.